But for me, I've learned that many years ago, I said, gosh, I wish I had a greater impact and greater influence in the Hispanic community. I'll be honest with you, I didn't really understand the relevancy that my culture as a Hispanic and a Cuban had in the United States until later on in my life. I mean, yes, I was raised in a household where my parents taught me about my Cuban culture and history. And yes, I had an opportunity to travel throughout South America and Spain to learn more about my Cuban roots. And yes, I went to UCLA and got a degree in international business with emphasis in Latin America. And yes, I've got Hispanic friends with fond memories. In fact, my first business was started in San Miguel de Allende in Guanajuato, Mexico in 1997, where I started my first business venture. But I truly became aware of what it meant to be Hispanic when I learned some words from my father, and I'm going to share those with you in a moment about change and how we approach change. But my real revelation took place one day when I had an opportunity to meet a congressman who had served our country for over 30 years in Washington, D.C. And I asked him two simple questions. Number one, why are Hispanics not viewed as having a positive reputation in this country? And also, why are Hispanics misrepresented and misunderstood? I just wanted to listen and learn from his wisdom. And he said, Glenn, there's three reasons why Hispanics don't have the relevancy in this country yet. He said, have you ever spent time with Koreans or the Indian community? He said, they are the reason and they are the role models that we must learn to follow and create relationships with as Hispanics, because they do three things that Hispanics don't. I said, well, what are they, Congressman? He says, well, there's three reasons. One is that the reasons why the most influential political leaders attend the Korean American or the Indian American galas and dinner functions are that they have education, they have order, and they have money. And they desire to create influence for their communities in America. He says, now Hispanics, and he goes, I say this very respectfully, but you've asked me a very powerful question, and I'm going to give you the real answers. He says, Hispanics have little or no education. He goes, now granted, I realize that there may be some limitations from an economic standpoint, but a lot of that comes from the fact that Hispanics have no order. And I realize that that's the case because you're not a homogeneous community. He goes, and the third is that very few have money, and those that do remain anonymous. And that really struck me. I said, in fact, you may feel offended by this conversation I had, and believe me, I didn't feel very happy about it. But this was his point, that if Korean Americans and Indian Americans can have the influence that they have in this country, well, gee, we control our own destiny as Hispanics, don't we? It really made me think. And it really made me think about what my parents taught me growing up about leadership and community and education and influence. And it made me really take the time to reflect upon something my father told me about change. And he said, son, without change, or excuse me, without strategy, change is only substitution, not evolution. Without strategy, change is only substitution, not evolution. What do you think that means? Anybody